Hey there, I'm going to be talking today about a path forward if you're looking to get unstuck from old habitual patterns, a way to resolve your emotional blocks and move forward in life instead of getting lost in the old pain and wounds that happened. I'm going to go into detail about this on Saturday in a webinar, a free webinar I'm doing, but I want to explore the 5 steps that we can take to get our needs met for life so that we're not caught in that old pattern over and over again. So who I am is somebody who's been doing this for almost 40 years. My name is Deirdre Fay, and I've written 3 books, and my new book is coming out on March 9th. And it's going to be about this very subject. It's about needing to have safe spaces externally and internally to develop a solid, steady, secure self, regardless of what's going on outside. Because we all know there can be a lot of turmoil, and there is a lot of turmoil going on right now. It's a painful time, and I really believe it's a transformational time, and that's why it's so important that we do what we can to up-level ourselves so that we're ready for what's coming down the pike. The reality is we need to have these internal and external supports to go through this turbulent time, or we get caught in the hamster wheel. We keep doing the same thing over and over again. So we need to have structure. We need to have skills. We need to have practices. We need to have community to be able to deal with the fears and the psychic numbing that we use to compensate with the news that's going on, the overwhelm, the not knowing. I mean, yesterday I was talking with somebody who shared how confusing it is right now. She doesn't know who to trust, what information to trust. I mean, we can all understand that, right? And there's certainly been an erosion of the systems that we have all depended on. I've also seen that some of the old systems that used to help people aren't working as well. And I recently asked about 45,000 people for their feedback on how they're dealing with this time. Whether they call it transformational time or not. And one of the major themes was that the old systems that they've been using aren't working, and they continue to feel stuck. This was over and over and over what I saw. So why is this so important? Because I really believe and know that we need to have a transformational model that helps us move outside the chaos, a way to get from where we are to a better place, to move through that crummy stuff. We need to transform our suffering into compassion. We need to be able to be with our minds, our bodies, and our hearts. Because you probably know this better than me, but when we're stuck in the past, when we repeat the same pattern over and over, those patterns become crusty, right? They become inflexible. We do whatever we do, and we're trying to change from within that pattern. But you know what? That just keeps us stuck, right? Doing the same thing over and over. But the more we can identify the patterns, the more we can not only see how pervasive and persistent they are, and we can actually begin to see, oh, wait, there's a way to change and shift those very patterns and transform them, become who we want to be instead of who that pattern is sort of imprinted on us and propelling us to be. And that's why identifying the pattern provides this key way to change. Once we see what's there and we see the pattern, we can begin to put a wedge into it. And instead of it being an unconscious operation, we are now aware of, oh, wow, that's the pattern. Right. Now I can shift it. And sometimes it's just making small little bits and pieces around it, but it makes a difference. That's what's so important. We change. So let's talk about this in specifics. You know, we can see it as we all have this invisible netting that's cast over us, having us repeat the same pattern, the same role repeatedly in our lives. You may have seen this. I know I hear this a lot. People saying, oh, I married the same person. Gosh, I'm in the same work situation over and over. Why is this happening with my kids over and over and over again? These are the patterns that keep us being in the same kinds of relationships, the same struggles, no matter how hard we try to have it be different. And yet when we are dealing with life from a transformational perspective, we begin to hear our stories of longing, the secret hopes that it can be different, and the prayer that the hope that there's nothing wrong with us. And you know what? There isn't anything wrong with you. One of the powerful messages from compassion-focused therapy is that you are not stuck in who you are. What Paul Gilbert has told us, who is the founder of compassion-focused therapy, though, is we are responsible to make the changes we want to make in our lives. The environment is what it is. Our internal environment has been imprinted on us, but that doesn't mean we're stuck. We can change that. We absolutely have that power. And I'm saying this because I see people change all the time. I see people making these fundamental changes and shifts in their lives. And I contrast it with the people who don't and still feel stuck. And I got to tell you, it makes me even more passionate about finding ways to help people get unstuck so that we can change, we can be different, we can have the lives we want. Whatever happened in your past is something that you learned unconsciously, not intentionally, not because you wanted it to be that way. It's through these patterns, these early patterns of interactions that come in and carve out a belief, a way of being, a perspective on life, and then it gets entrenched that way. It gets crusty, right? We become inflexible. That's all we see. And when we try to see something different, we can't. As much as we try, and we try. It's not that we're not trying, right? So what we know from the research is this patterning happens early on, before we had the self-development, the brain capacity to understand what was going on. We encoded the interactions through a different memory system, a feeling, a non-verbal body-based system. And that system isn't as available to our conscious understanding. In one of the last Safely Embodied Learning community calls, people were exploring their triggers. We do it as kind of a mini workshop. And so people were exploring their triggers, looking for a way to create new healing habits out of them. We actually call them healing habit calls. As a group, this group together was starting to see the underpinnings that brought their individual situations to a head, what patterns were there. And then we looked at the way the individual upsets complicated instead of resolving the situations. But here's the thing, instead of staying stuck, instead of resigning themselves to feel this is just the way it is, nothing I can do, right? We explore the body-based patterns, and then we can find simple, practical ways to intervene. Being in the midst of all this and watching people make changes the way they are, I feel more and more called to action. I am so driven to helping people to understand how to navigate transformation. That's my heart's passion. And it's a process I've been involved in personally since I was young. Since I was 18, that was a long time ago, I'm telling you. And professionally, that's what my whole professional career has been about. In studying and training myself in the transformational process, I've been preparing for this moment, unbeknownst to me, for a long time. And the people that I see go through this process emerge stronger, more solid, capable of being in this chaotic time with a greater sense of safety and balance. They're like more fluid. They can deal with life. It comes through, it rises, crests and falls, rather than knocking them down to the ground and crushing them. Ugh, none of us like that. And I want you to have a different experience. I want you to have the same kind of flexibility, that same capacity to let life move through you instead of sticking to you and crushing you. And this is what I'm going to be talking about in the free webinar I do this Saturday. So come and join me there and learn the 5 steps that you can take to get your needs met for life. That's what I'm going to talk about. That's what I'm going to help you get there. And it is my total pleasure to do that. So the link is dfay.com/map. And I'll see you on Saturday.